Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hairymuppet. Welcome back to another Factorio Space Age tutorial, Megabase tutorial. Yeah, this one it's kind of focused on megabases, but it's mainly focused on trains. And when it comes to trains, it's just awesome all over the place. So, yes, if you don't know anything about trains, this is mainly about the new features in Space Age for trains. And there are a few. There's not many, but the features that have come are pretty freaking awesome. So, let's start off by having a look at... we can have a bit of a look at the train network. Spoiler alert, I have not used elevated rails anywhere. I don't really use them. If you're trying to find out how to use elevated rails to make awesome builds, I'm afraid this is not the video for you. I'm sure somebody else can give you some great blueprints for like beautiful intersections. I have not done any of that crap. Even when I go to other planets like Volcanus and I want to make a T intersection, it looks exactly the same as my Now Vs ones, except it's up on stilts. So yeah, when I say train tutorial, I'm talking about the actual logistics of trains and the schedules and all of that sort of stuff. The really interesting things. In terms of building the rail network, if you want to use elevated rails, then I apologize, but this video is not for you. So, let's talk about the actual logistics of trains. And let's start with this train right here. Now, this train, for the most part, looks pretty much the same. You've got your load and you've got your unload. You've got this weird thing called an interrupt, which we'll get into a second. And you've got this weird thing called a group, which we'll talk about right now. So groups are incredibly awesome. Incredibly awesome. Basically, it says any changes made to the schedule will be applied to all trains in the train group, ignoring any temporary stops. So temporary stops are all about the interrupts, so we can just ignore those for now. So basically, the train group is selected up here. We have a number of different train groups for the trains doing various things. Over on Now Vs, they're mainly just shipping around ores, but what we can actually do is we can start off by building a train. I don't really need any more trains. We're going to build one anyway. We're going to build another 1-4 train, and I want this one to be another copper train. So I'm going to select copper ore, and instantly the schedule has been filled in. We've got the same copper ore load, copper ore unload, and the same interrupt. So, and if we go over to the trains list, we can see that we have 66 trains, and 9 of them all have exactly the same name because they're part of a group. And you can see that we've got 8 which are currently doing things and 1 which is manually stopped. And if you go into groups and you look at copper ore, you can see pretty much the same thing. I don't know if it's possible to rename the trains in the same group. I've never really tried. I don't think it is. Which means if every train is part of a group, then this groups list and this trains list is kind of similar, although it does tell you how many are in each group, which I guess both menus do. But yeah. Basically, the good thing about this is you define your group, you define the schedule, and then you want 7 more trains in that group. You just create them, select the group, and Bob's your uncle. And I do believe that you can select a color for a group, and then it sort of takes that color over. I don't mess around with colors too much, but yes. So, let's talk about the next cab off the rank, which is interrupts. So, interrupts is a brand new feature. We've only really got one interrupt on Now Vs, and that is fuel low. And that's a very, very awesome interrupt. So these guys currently use nuclear fuel. So you can only fit 3 nuclear fuel in a train at any one time. So we've got a interrupt condition here, and it says if the fuel in the train is less than 2, in other words, if it's 1 or 0, then we want to go to this refuel station and then wait until all of the locomotives, which in this case it's just going to be 1, are fully fueled, and then we go to the waiting station and do nothing. And we actually need to get the hell out of here because, yes, we're blocking up another train from refueling. This train here, this iron ore train, was trying to refuel, and we were blocking him, which is not good. So, but yeah, basically, our refuel stop is right here, and it's just got a couple of inserters, and we've got a waiting station over here, which basically just is just this big empty place for waiting. And now this is not exactly space age information, but it's very, very important for you to know. The reason I put a waiting station after the refuel station on these schedules is because it adds it as a temporary stop. So it'll go to unload or something like that, and then it'll say, oh, I need to refuel. It'll put the refuel as a temporary thing. Like, for example, if I do this, it's temporary refuel. So if we get rid of temporary waiting, it'll refuel, and then after that, it'll try and go to copper ore load. Now, if you've got tons of copper ore load stations, then you're just beautiful. You've got no issues. But if your copper ore is not great, and especially if you have fancy logic on your station, say, don't activate the station until you have enough copper ore, or set the train limit of the station based on how much ore is in the station, then suddenly that train is like, hang on, there's no copper ore station for me to go to. I'm just going to sit here and wait. And if it sits there and wait in the refueling stop and a whole bunch of trains back up behind it, let's just say that I have run into that particular problem before, and that's why I added the waiting station. Now you can put the waiting station in other areas. I haven't really found it to be useful in any other areas, but right after refueling, and after unloading, it can be useful as well if you've got another train that wants to go in, and as you said, there's not enough copper loading stations free up, then you might want to go after unload, you go waiting. But since I've got so much copper, I'm basically drowning in it because my mining productivity is quite high. I don't actually have that problem anymore, so I got rid of the waiting station after the copper ore unload. So let's talk about interrupts a little bit more, because it's great that it interrupts the schedule, but when does it actually interrupt the schedule? So if we go ahead to this guy, I'm going to yank all the fuel out of him. You can see it's still just sitting there. It's got the fuel low, interrupt, and it's definitely less than 2, but it's still just sitting there. So the way the interrupt works is that it only actions when the train is trying to pick a new station. So if it's currently at a station and it hasn't finished with that station, interrupts won't work. If it's in the middle of moving, the interrupts won't work. If it's like this train, it's halfway through its journey. If I yank the fuel out of it right now, it'll just keep going on till its final destination. It'll stop there. It'll finish whatever it needs to do with that station. And then when it goes to pick a new station, suddenly it'll say, okay, I would normally be going to stone load, but instead this interrupt is triggered, so I'm going to go and get fuel. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to stand, there's actually quite a bit here, right? All right, boom, boom, boom. Now we see this train here is currently, so if I grab that out, you can see that immediately the interrupt triggered and it went to temporary refuel and then temporary waiting. And as soon as it is finished, that gets removed from the schedule, and then we go over to temporary waiting. And since there's no wait condition, it's just going to go straight through. It's not even going to slow down, it's just going to go straight through. And then it's going to go on to the next stop, which is stone load. So that is the basics of how interrupts work. Now, this is mainly about space age stuff, I will show you some of my Megabase stations and some of my ore mining stations, because there is some really good stuff about here that is new in Space Age, but only a little bit. So if you have a look at a map, you will notice that this stone ore mining station has a star next to it. Has a little green asterisk, and the little green asterisk means that that station is full. Now, this is not an inbuilt system. This is something that I designed myself, but I really like it. And every single station has currently got a little green star because my mining productivity is through the roof. Well, this one's got a 0, which means it doesn't got much in it, but that's because it's producing science and that constantly gets thrown through. But the pretty much whenever I produce something, this is a quality station, ignore this one, but this is a proper one, so it's got a little star. So let me explain this real quick. So I get all of the different chests and I put them into a thing, and then I basically say, okay, we're going to divide it by 8,000 and output the signal L. And then the signal L, I got a little bit of logic here for this particular station because there's only so much room in this station. So basically what I say is if L is less than or equal to 3, then output L. If it's greater than 3, then we output a standard L instead, which is just a common of 3. So it's basically capping the level of L at 3, because otherwise I would end up with trains backing up on the main line. And then we set the train limit of L to be 3. That's nothing new. We've been able to do that for ages. So what's new is this display panel. Now, there have been display panel mods forever. They display numbers. This one doesn't display numbers. It displays symbols. So I basically had to put this huge ass switch statement in here to check every single value. Is L equal to 0, output 0. Is L equal to 1, output 1. And if L is greater than 9, then I output the green star. So that means the station is so full that it could take care of 10 or more trains. And this was really useful early game because I could, at a glance, I could look at every single ore mine on the entire map. And if it's got a star, I know I don't have to worry about iron. And if it's got a 2, I know that coal is getting a little bit shaky and maybe I need to build another one. So that is a beautiful use of the display panel. And that is how the display panel works. Yes, it can't display numbers, but it can display icons. And more importantly, it displays them on the map. I'm not sure exactly what these settings do. In the map charts. The alt mode. I'm not exactly sure, but all I know is I see it in the map, and that is the important thing for me. Another thing I'll show you very quickly before I get to the really good stuff is this little unloading setup. But again, this is not space age. This is just standard. Basically, you take the amount of stuff in the chests. You have a constant I of how much you want. You do a subtraction. You get the result, and then you take that result and you divide it and put it into L. And basically that means that this one I have messed up the math for because we should not have trains stuck in here, but yeah, basically it sets the train limit. Train limit of 0. Yeah, clearly I messed up the math for that one. Or potentially what's happening is it's draining the back wagons. It shouldn't be doing that because I got to. Anyway, ignore that. I messed that up. But that's a neat little signal that you can use to actually, actually unload nice and easily. But again, that's not space age stuff. What is going on here? That's just my alarm. Or just ignore that. So now we're going to get to the really good stuff. This is the really awesome stuff. So if you've ever built a Megabase before, you've probably tinkered around with the LTN mod. the Logistics Train Network mod. That's a mod where you basically just build 100 trains and then you send them off and they will automatically do things. So the same train can go and pick up red circuits and deliver it, and then it can turn around and do iron ore and deliver it, and then it can go around and do green circuits and deliver it, and you don't need specific trains for every single type of item. Now, currently, I have set it up to have specific trains. For every where are the green science trains? Oh, science. I thought it was green circuits for a sec. No, green science, we definitely have trains. We got 2 of them, and they sort of go back and forward. Thought I had green circuits. I was like, why the hell do I have green circuits? But anyway, the LTN mod is beautiful because any train can transport any object, and it's all managed perfectly. Now, what I've got in this little setup is a very small example of how you could do an LTN setup using vanilla Space Age. It sounds a bit weird saying it, vanilla Space Age. Using just Space Age, no extra mods. Now, it does require some circuit network shenanigans. You will have to set up your circuit networks quite a lot and stretch circuit networks between bases, but if you do, then potentially you could basically do that. Yeah. So what we have here is we've got 6 stations. Now we've got our refuel station, which this guy has an interrupt for, echo fuel low. We've got our waiting station, which is currently hooked up to the circuit network. And then we've got a pair of loading and unloading stations. So basically, this guy is the unloading, unloads into a chest, puts it onto a belt, and then loads it in here. Now we've hooked each of these chests up to this substation. And basically we're seeing how the unloading station has. Does the unloading station have goods? Or is it empty and it needs another train to go through? So currently both of these unloading stations, the blue and the unloading and the red and the unloading, are full. They've got their red circuits. So what we can do here is we can rotate this and rotate this so it unloads. And as you can see, when it finishes unloading, this will become empty and the train automatically goes around to the loading station, picks up all that sort of stuff, and then it's going to go around to the unloading station, and it's going to wait a little bit because obviously it can't wait for full cargo because there's only 200 circuits there. But then it goes around to the unloading station, it unloads it, and there it goes. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to unload the blue as well, and we can see this one goes back here, it's going to sit, and then it's going to head off immediately, and now it's going to blue. And I didn't have to change the train schedule at all. It just happened. First it was transferring the red circuits over. It finished doing that. Immediately it went over to blue circuits and did it. And now it's going to unload the blue circuits in the blue circuit unloading station, and then it's going to go back to the waiting bay. And that is LTN. That is basically all that LTN is. It's just a train going out when it needs to go out. And this is absolutely not using the LTN mod. This is using Space Age Vanilla. And furthermore, it's using interrupts. So let's go into the train schedule. So all it has is waiting. That's all it has. If nothing else is happening, it just goes waiting. So we've got our fuel low, which is exactly the same as before. If the fuel is less than 60, then it goes to refuel, waits till all locomotives fully fueled. Now, let's look at blue circuits. Now this depends on the circuit condition, which is why we had to stretch that wire over into the station, because obviously it's just circuit condition. There's no circuit condition at specified station. is just circuit condition. Because otherwise that would be a little bit overpowered if you could check the circuit condition at a specific station. And also, you can have multiple stations with the same name. So if you were checking the circuit condition at the station of a specific name and you got 5 stations with that name, which one are you checking? I don't know. So what it's doing is it's checking the circuit at the current station. And it's saying, okay, it's got 168. Is that equal to 0? If it's equal to 0, then that means that unloading station is empty. So what it does is it goes to blue load, and this would normally be full cargo, but I've got a little bit of faffery here, and then blue unload. But it's as simple as that. So that is one way to do an LTN. There's one way to do it. And that's probably the best way to do it. Now, the problem with this method is that you need to have every single one of your unload stations hooked up to the circuit network. Now, what you... Yeah. It is a little bit tricky if you were going to do a full LTN setup. What you'd probably have to be very specific. You'd probably have to have a train limit of 1 on this guy. You'd probably have to have train limits of 1. Basically, you wouldn't need a train limit of 1 on the load. In fact, it would probably be bad to have a train limit of 1 on the load, but on the unload, you would probably want a train limit of 1. Because the thing is, you'd have 20 or 30 trains, and the second this empties out, they are all going to get a signal. They're all going to get a signal. So how would that actually work? We're going into theory crafting territory a little bit here. If you had 30 trains, they all get this interrupt at once. Would they all go over to red load? If you've got multiple stations producing red circuits, then potentially you'd have 3 or 4 trains all going over there. And then, yeah, then they'd all go to red unload. That could be a problem, actually. Maybe I haven't thought this. It's as a concept, it is fantastic. Like LTN, like we've taken a very big step towards reproducing LTN in space age. But that is potentially a problem. You might have like 20 trains all heading over to red circuits all at once. Now, if you only had one station producing red circuits, and you only had it had a destination limit of 1, then it might be okay. But the thing is, once the train leaves red, another train is immediately going to head there, because the unload station is still empty. Is still empty, right? Okay, here's where we start really theory crafting this stuff. Okay? Here's where we start really theory crafting this. Okay. Alright. We're gonna start playing around here. So this is not quite a tutorial anymore. This is kind of a playing around thing. But if we can make LTN work in default space age, then it is going to be awesome. Okay. So I'm going to put you on manual for a second. So we're going to take this one. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say if red circuits equals 0, output 1, output 1. So I take all those out. Suddenly we've got 1. Okay. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So we're going to do exactly the same thing over here. I could make it completely generic, but I don't think I want to waste my time. I guess we just did it. No, see, that doesn't work. It's because we have to put it out if it's so if it's equal to 0, then we output 1. Okay, so then we take all this out and it outputs 1. Damn it! I always forget you can't control Z taking stuff in and out of chess. Okay. Alright. And we need another decider combinator. So this is going to be C. So we make this a train limiter 1, and this is outputting, reading the train count, and the train count is currently C. So if C equals 0, output N, to say no train. And then we need we kind of, what are we doing here? We're kind of getting confused. I'm getting very confused. We want to say if, okay, we need an arithmetic. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to output red circuits of 1. Okay, so this one's outputting, so if there's no train, we output a red circuit. If there's there, then we output a red circuit as well. So then we put this, and we want a decider combinator. So this one is the green wire, and this one is the red wire. So we're going to take red circuit, now we want 2. Okay. So if they're both equal to 2, then we output red circuit of 1. Okay. Now if we take this out, suddenly we've got a red circuit of 1. So it's saying the red signal means the chest is empty, and the green signal means that there is no train coming. So it's gone to blue. That was unexpected. Why have you gone to blue? Because I forgot to mess with these. Okay. Got to change these. They're supposed to be 1. Okay. Go back to waiting. So now it should get red. I think. Yes, it got red. Now this is outputting 1. You can see it's, even though it's not there, it's outputting C of 1. So we're going to put 200 in there. Now the only question is, does this work for multiple trains? If we got more than one train. So let's go ahead and test that out. I'll have to give them a little bit of fuel. All right. So you are test group 1. You are also test group 1. So using the groups again, so they get the exact same schedule. Oh, by the way, whenever you update an interrupt, it gets updated for every train. Even if the train is in a different group, if it's using the same interrupt with the same name, then it gets updated across every single group and every single train in that group. Okay. Now we're going to have to put this line across there so that all of these have the same thing. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, just to be on the safe side, is so this one has a train limit of 1. This one has an unlimited. So we're going to see what happens. Okay. That was beautiful. Only one train got sent off. Even though this has a huge destination limit, only one train got sent off. And as soon as this one leaves, another train shouldn't get sent off. Because, again, this one's got a train incoming. So even though this is empty, it's detecting there's a train incoming. And by the time this train leaves, C will again become 0. It'll become 0. Okay, that's what happens when I don't put signals anywhere. Yeah, C is now 0 and it's all good. Okay, what I might do is I might actually put signals here. Because now we've got multiple trains. I'm not going to bother with anything fancy like chain signals or anything like that. I'm just going to block them up into different areas. And we're going to see how it works. Okay. Let's put that other train back there again. You are going to be test group 1. And give you some rocket fuel. Okay, now we're going to take red unload and we're going to remove the train limit. I'm going to see exactly what happens here. Okay. Only one train. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I would have expected... Well, I just chucked some spoilage in there by accident. I did not mean to put spoilage. Only one train. That worked better than I expected. Maybe... Okay, so there's got to be something with the interrupt. Okay, so if we say C is less than or equal to 1... Wait, no, if C is 0... Okay. Okay, so what we want is less than 2. Now that's not going to trigger because we got some stuff in the chest, but I want it to send over 2 trains every time now. Okay, that's one train. The other interrupt should be... I do not understand. That should have... Maybe there's something inbuilt. Okay. So let's say if it's less than 500. I wonder if there's a way to do this. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused here, to be honest. I think we've accomplished it, but I think maybe there's some sort of interrupt thing where it's capping out at 1. It can only do the same interrupt for one train at a time. I mean, we shouldn't need to change this. This should be just if it's equal to 0. Let's just play around a bit. So let's get rid of this green signal. That's the wrong thing. Let's get rid of this green circle, and we'll say it's equal to 1. And then if we get rid of this, so we're not even counting the amount of trains going. Yeah, still only one train gets sent over at any one time. That is very interesting. So I think we're learning some stuff here. I think we're learning that, I mean, these trains do have the same schedule. Oh, I'm an idiot. These guys are both in manual mode. Okay. All right. We are going to let this train do its thing, and then we are going to re-look at this particular example. And I'm going to stop putting so many bloody advanced circuits in here, because clearly we have too many. Alrighty, so that was me going down the garden path, but yeah. If you're still here for this amount, then it's all good. Okay. So you should not have gone. Why did you go? Oh, you needed fuel. You wanted fuel. That's okay. You're allowed to go and get fuel. Okay. So we've said if C equals 0. So we'll go back to C equals 0, then we output that. And if we say it's equal to 2, then we output that. And if we say it's equal to 0. So this should hopefully only have one train sent over. And I thought we tested this before, and I was very happy that it worked, but I didn't realize that 2 of these trains are on manual. So let's try it again. Nah. All three went at the same time. That's not good. That's definitely not good. So obviously they all calculated their thing instantaneously. Why is C still 0? Read train count. Why have you got so much? Your train count is 0. Okay, now your train count is 1. Okay, that did not quite work as I wanted it to. You want some red circuits as well, don't you? Okay. That's if you upgrade it. If you update a temporary station, it doesn't actually update the interrupt under the covers. But yeah, there we go. Beautiful. And if you update the interrupt, it doesn't actually update the temporary thing that was created off it. So it's not 100% perfect, but yeah, this is okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to enable the train limit of this to be 1 again, because that will go back to our normal situation, right? Okay, so we take it out here, all 3 trains get split off. That's not good. So we're going to try again, except this time we're going to set the destination limit of the pickup station to be 1. And I believe, I hope, that that will solve the situation. But yeah, that's annoying. Why are you sleeping? Because you can't get to red unload. Because we've got too many trains in the network. Just go to waiting. Okay. Yeah, and it may not seem like that big a deal, but if you got 50 trains in the LTN system all ready to go, then you do not want all 50 of them to go out and pick up red circuits for one job. You just don't. Oh, we haven't actually put red circuits in. Let's put 200 in there so these trains stop going off and gallivanting around and doing stuff. Because it's starting to get a little bit annoying. Yes, just stop it already, please. Stop it, go back to waiting, just sit there. Okay, so we've learned that the train count does not actually get set based on trains further down. It only actually reflects trains that are immediately, that their next stop is there. So it doesn't matter if they're further down the thing, it's only their next stop. And the train limit doesn't seem to matter because they're not going to there yet. So they'll just go to load and then stall there. So now we've got a train limit of 1. Okay. All right. That is unfortunate. That is very unfortunate. Yes, we did have 1 train going over there, but the other 2 want to go over there. They've got it in their schedule. Which is very bad news. Because now you end up with 50 trains all wanting to go over there. Okay, so what is started as a tutorial has turned into some sort of crazy testing session. Maybe we can do something here. I'm pretty sure that's talking about the currents, where the current train is. So it's not at the red load. It's not the zoom I'm trying to do. Oh, this is all of them. I already had that one. Okay. Let's save that. That's a little bit over the top, but I want to see how it works. Oh, hell, we did it. We did it. I don't know how we did it, but these trains are no longer trying to get over to red circuits. And they're not going to trigger anymore because now this one has a C value. Okay, I have a feeling it was this one. Okay, so save the interrupt. So now let's put a little bit of things over there. My God, we actually did it. That was a very thorny problem to solve. Okay. So let's recap. So destination not red load is not full. Now, if I set this to have to get rid of its train limit, then I'm guessing we're going to be in problems. Yeah, all 3 trains headed off. Not what we wanted. Definitely not what we wanted. And they're going to get in some weird sort of thing. So you no longer need to unload. You no longer need to load or unload. And you no longer need to do anything. Just go back and wait. Go back and wait. So here's the thing, right? We have a destination and train limit here. Now we could start doing some very fancy logic to say, okay, we're going to match up the number of trains incoming and match it up to the number of advanced circuits we're missing to try and get 3 trains in there. Might work. Maybe we'll try that in a second. But if I set the train limit to 2, what happens? 1 train will head off, and then I think as soon as this one leaves the loading station, another train will head off. Maybe. Let's have a look. No? That's weird. I see. This is probably still... Yeah, because we didn't mess with this one. So it's still kind of... even though this has a destination limit of 2, we didn't update this. So if we say it's less than 2, then we should get the behavior that we want. So we're getting 1 train heading over, and then the second it leaves the loading station, another train should kick off and go down the same route. No! Oh, yes! Yes, it did. It took a little while, but it did do that. It did do that, and... Okay, well... We've definitely got some stuff going, and there's another station. So then... So, have we replicated the LTN? Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no. So I'm going to leave this on 2 for now. And we're going to put some circuits back in here so that the entire network shuts down. And you can go back and wait. So I don't like the idea of having this as a train limit of 1. But you definitely can't have an unlimited limit. So if we set this to have a train limit of 2, and then we yank this out, immediately 2 trains head off. Now the problem is 2 trains would head off even if you only needed 1 train to unload, because they're determined totally via the they're determined totally by the destination limit of the station. So I'm not sure exactly how we best deal with that, because yeah, this interrupt right here, this wonderful little interrupt, red load is not full. And of course, if you have 3 stations all creating red circuits, then you're gonna, at a minimum, you're gonna send off 3 trains, unless there's a train currently waiting there. Now, this all assumes, of course, now we're starting to go into very deep territory here. This has gone way beyond a tutorial, but we're starting to assume that we need to run this like an LTN. Like an old school LTN where we have a waiting bay and the trains just sit there. Could we run it slightly differently? And by slightly differently, I mean there's always a train at the loading station, and it's always just sitting there, and it doesn't go anywhere because it's just sitting there. It loads up and then it just sits there forever, and it could go to a dozen different places. And after it finishes unloading, then it goes back to the waiting area, and then so basically, all right, basically red load is not full. So this station has a destination limit of 1. It should have a, damn it, it needs a destination limit of 1, otherwise that doesn't work. Now this doesn't currently work because we got our 10-second pass thing there. But where are all the trains gone? Okay, let's go for it here. Let's get rid of this. Save that interrupt. Okay. So what we want is a train always being in this station, ready to load. Now these temporary ones are going to filter out because they got the old schedule, which still has the 10-second, but once we get rid of that, then we should have a train that just sits there forever. This one. This one's just going to sit there forever, and the other 2 are going to be waiting because they cannot go to red circuits because it's not full. And then all we need to do here, and this is actually the genius thing because we don't need the circuit network anymore. We can get rid of the circuit network entirely. All we need to do is say if that is equal to 0, then we set L to be 1. And basically we have an exact copy of it, and we say if is greater than 0, then L is now 0. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure we actually need this guy. So we send that. Why do I keep clicking that bloody thing? Get rid of that. Set the train limit. Don't need the train count anymore. Don't need this anymore. We'll leave it there, but we'll disconnect all the wires from the tower so it doesn't mess that up. Oh, we don't need the tower anyway. Okay. Since do we get rid of that? Well, here's the thing, right? We should be able to put a little bit of red circuits in here. And this train still won't leave. I put way too much in there, but it's still not going to leave. Okay. So it's still going to sit there. Yeah. It's waiting to go to red unload. And red unload is not going to activate because it's still got red circuits. Now, the instant we take them out of there, the train goes over here. And another train instantly goes over to red circuits and says, hey, you know, I'm ready to go. Which is fine, which is beautiful. So now we're going to go to Mr. Blue Circuits and we're going to say station's not full. Blue load. Okay. And of course, we have not set the train limit of this. So we now have to destroy this guy. But yeah. So that shifts the waiting area. So it shifts the train waiting from the waiting area to the actual load. Which is obviously not super awesome. But it is a good system because it means you don't need to send circuits everywhere around the entire base. You don't need to circuit network hook up your entire base. You could do it all entirely remotely. And yeah, so we do this. So this is now if blue circuits equal to 0, and then we'll get rid of that. And we're going to set the train limit. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make you manual. I'm going to send you back. Now, actually, we do kind of need 3 trains because there's always going to be one sitting here. Okay, so we put a little bit of red circuits here, just a little bit. And we put a little bit of blue circuits here, just a little bit. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change the color of this train. I'm going to change this one to be green. I'm going to change this one to be red. I'm going to change this one to be blue. And I don't know why I turned my legs off, but I did. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these networks on so they start working automatically. And what I want to see is these trains behaving smartly. So I want to see the red one doing red circuit stuff, and then I want to see the blue one doing red circuit stuff. We don't need quite that many in the thing. So the blue train is now in the blue circuits. The red one is unloading the reds. The green one is loading the reds. The red one is going to go back to the blue load area. And what I actually want is a couple more trains. Just to sort of... We should be able to keep more trains in the... Because we're always going to... We've got 3 waiting areas, and we've got 2 trains that are always going to be loading. So we should be able to support 5. I might keep one of them manual for now, just so we don't completely overload the entire system. Yeah. Okay, so we've got the green train currently loading blue circuits. The red train currently loading red circuits. The blue train currently unloading red circuits. The green train unloads them, and then another red train comes and loads the blue circuits. And there's not that many circuits, so there's only one train at a time is going to have the stuff in it. Okay, so after this red train is gone, I'm going to disable these inserters so that this sort of backs up. But we'll keep the blue one going. So far, I mean, we've got a green with blue circuits and a blue with red circuits, so it looks like they are being reused. Because the blue one was definitely using blue circuits before, but now it's unloading red circuits. So the trains are definitely switching from the different paths. They're definitely being fully reused. So I like this setup. I like it a lot. Now the downside to this setup is that you do need a lot of trains, because there's always going to be trains at the loading area. Though it depends on the throughput, really. It depends on how much throughput you have. Because what we could do is we could just say, okay, we're going to set the train limit of this one to be 2. And there's always going to have 2 trains. So for example, in my Megabase right now, I could just set the destination limit of this to be 3. And then there will always be 3 trains sitting here waiting to deliver coal to copper to wherever they need to, which is kind of what they're already doing. Like if I go to the copper group, what are they all doing at the moment? I got 4 at the load station. I got 1 waiting to unload, 1 waiting to unload, 1 waiting to unload, 1 waiting to unload, and 2 at a different load station. So we could probably pull this down to 4 trains solid and have them be generic trains that could be used anywhere. And we could just say, okay, for copper, do I need a bit more copper? Okay, I'm going to increase the destination limit of my copper load station to be 4, to be a maximum of 4, so that 4 trains are waiting there. Or you could just make 100 trains and have this have a train limit of 10, and then it's always going to have 10 trains letting there. Now, is it that much better than having a group of 10 copper trains? I mean, you don't need a group, do you? You just need trains. So we're kind of messing this up. Let's but it's kind of good. It's kind of good. Let's set that back down to 1. We definitely do not need 2 there. Yeah. So a few different ways. So one way of doing it is the trains just sit at the waiting area until they're needed. But the only way that really works is A, you need a circuit network to send off to the waiting area so the waiting trains know what's going on. And B, you need to have a destination limit of 1 for the red circuits, and you can only have 1 station that creates red circuits. So for example, if you wanted to say transport iron ore, using that method, you would only be able to have 1 station in your entire system that was loading iron ore. If you had 2 iron load stations, and each one had a destination of 2, then 4 trains would get sent out, even if the unload station only needed 1 at a time. So it's kind of jank. And there's, as far as I can tell, there's really no way to sort of get around it. Not that I could see anyway. There may have been some interrupt condition. But the problem is, it is the interrupt generation, the interrupt activation is parallel. It doesn't... I mean, it kind of, like, it is not fully parallel because it does impact the destination full. Destination full does seem to stop too many from being done, which is nice, but yeah. Definitely, that route being created did not trigger the train count, which is not great because we really needed it to trigger the train count. And the fact that it didn't means that we can't say, oh, we've got 10 stations providing iron ore, but only one needs iron ore, so therefore only send one train. It doesn't work like that. And we did it via circuits, like the instant that one train got sent out. But then again, it was reliant on the train count. I mean, the only way you could do that to make it really perfect is you'd have to have all of the, like, let's say for red circuits, you have to have all of the red circuits, unload and load train stations connected together in a big network. And then you would say something like, okay, so we've got one unload station that needs one train. So then you output one red circuit or something like that. And then you go to all of the load stations and you'd say, okay, we only need one train to be unloaded. And then somehow you would have to say, okay, we only need one train to be loaded, so we only activate one train station. So you set the destination limit of one of the load stations to be 1 and the rest of them to be 0. If you got 3 stations, you want one of them to be true and the other ones to be false. I'm not sure how you would do that. You'd probably have like a primary station. The primary station that you would activate first. And then if you want 2 ones, then you would activate the primary and the secondary station. If you want 3 ones, then you'd activate all 3 of them. So you'd have to have some sort of crazy switch statement. That would also have to factor in the amount of red circuits available at the primary station, so that if it doesn't have any red circuits available, then suddenly you start upping the train limit on the secondary station to make up for it. Some sort of crazy thing like that. If that was the case, then you're basically driving the destination limit of all of the load stations based on the train requirements of all of the unload stations. But then you have to circuit network connect all the load stations to all the unload stations, and then you could have all the trains just sitting in the waiting area. But my God, that would be a lot of circuit malarkey. So I think that if we exclude that, if we absolutely exclude that, if we exclude that possibility, then the trains just sitting in the waiting area is a terrible idea, because there's really no way to stop them from just swarming all of the load stations every time one unload station needs something. Not that I can see from these interrupt conditions. The only way that really seems to be solid, that seems to be working, is destination full or no path. That seems to just be immediate, beautiful, and it stops the other trains from getting that same interrupt. But then that only works if the trains are sitting at the waiting area, if you only have a single load station with a destination of 1, which is not good for scalability. It might be good for some things, but if you want all of your trains to be sitting at the waiting area, not good. So the alternative, which is quite good, which does do an LTN setup and it actually makes it workable, is you have a mixture. You have one train always sitting at every load station, and then you have surplus trains at the waiting area. And as soon as a train that's full at the load station is needed by an unload station, it heads off and another train races over to fill its place at the load station. Now, the obvious downside to that solution is you've got a whole bunch of trains sitting at load stations, which is not super terrible, really. It's not an absolute disaster. And it does still use the LTN sort of thinking, because you could have like an extra 20 trains over at the waiting area, and you've got 4 iron ore loading stations. As soon as the iron ore train leaves, another train from the waiting area comes straight back in and fills it up. So normally you would need 12 iron ore trains, but with the LTN properly, you don't need 12 trains specifically for iron. You will probably have 12 trains out of the group probably cycling through the iron ore, because they'll just be constantly moving and constantly heading over to the load station. But you won't need to set a specific group. They can all be part of the generic group, and that same generic group can do every single resource, assuming for the same station sizes, of course. I'm not sure if you'd want to mix different train sizes with the same sort of interrupts. That would probably go very badly. So yeah, you'd have to build a ton of extra trains because they would all be sitting in loading areas, but that's not really a deal breaker, to be honest. That's quite reasonable. That's very reasonable. And you could still do things like set this to have a destination limit of, well, the destination limit is 8. So that would probably have to be tweaked, because you would end up with 8 trains here all the time. And realistically, you only need like 3 probably to keep the Megabase running. You only really need 3 here. Now, it's got 5 at the moment because we're not using a lot of copper, but if we go over to like stone or something, where's my stone? You can see there's only 1 here. Even though I have like, how many stone trains do I have? I got 10 stone trains and there's only 1 waiting at the load station. Probably because I got another load station here, which is also doing very well. So it's probably got another couple there. But this is an old one. I keep expecting this one to die. I think this is the first one I ever made with the big mining drill. So it's just going forever. But it doesn't have the proper station with the waiting area in it. But anyway, I think that is the way you do it. I think you have trains sitting at the loading areas. They've got the stuff. They're just sitting there waiting forever until they're fully loaded up, and then they go to the unload stations when they need to. And the unload stations, you have to you couldn't really enable and disable them based on how much ore is missing, because you enable them and suddenly you've got 10 trains coming in. So what you'd do is you would set the train limit based on the amount of product that is missing, which we're already doing in some of these stations. As I said, I got the math wrong on some of them, but you can see we take all the stuff in there and we say we want 50k, and then we subtract 50k, 43k from 50k, we get 6.8 divided by 8k, output L, and then we've got the train limit. And that would be it. And yeah, that's basically how you would do LTN, and just have 100 trains and they would just rotate. They would just rotate like crazy. And God help you if you don't unload them properly and you've got leftover crap, because we've all done that in an LTN system and ended up with iron plate in the iron ore input and iron ore in the copper ore input and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, filtering all of your inserters for your unload stations. If you're going to do some sort of crazy LTN type setup, put filter inserters for all of your unloads. The loads don't really matter too much. When you're loading stuff, it don't really matter, but unloads, absolutely fantastic. And yeah, get some active provider chests on all of your waiting areas that just do this. Just a tip, okay? It's very awesome. And actually what I used to do is you do this on one side, and on the other side, what you do is you have a pump. And you'd pump, and then you'd send it into like a clarifier. I don't actually know how you get rid of fluids in Space Age. I'm not sure if there's a way to do that. But yeah, because if a train ever makes it back to the waiting area and it's still got fluid in it, you need to get rid of that fluid. Maybe you put it in a steam engine or something? Is that how you get rid of fluid? I could have sworn there was a way to do it. Maybe there isn't. Maybe there is. I really can't remember. Yeah, I think maybe you chuck it into a steam engine and it just kind of disappears, or a boiler or something like that. That used to be what happened, I think. I'm not sure anymore. But anyway, that is one thing that you could do. We haven't even talked about fluid. I'm assuming the fluids would work exactly the same. You would have a completely separate set of interrupts for your fluid trains. So you'd have a cargo wagon fluid schedule, and then you'd have a cargo wagon schedule and a fluid wagon schedule, and never the two would cross over except for when they need to refuel. But yeah, you could do pretty much the same LTN setup, and as long as you always made sure to fully unload it, then you're beautiful. And the good thing about this is, all right, the good thing about this is, I think LTN by default, it had some sort of thing where if it got stuck at a station, it would, after like 30 seconds or 120 seconds or something, it would just leave anyway, which was the cause of so many corruptions of stations with items they shouldn't have had. So yes, definitely, now that we are fully in control of what happens, you can just say fully unload the wagon, fully load the wagon. You don't really have to worry about corruption anymore. Okay. Well, we have gone deep, very, very deep into the trains. And we have basically done an LTN solution for Space Age, no mods required. It's not quite the same as LTN. It has some downsides. You have to have trains always sitting at the loading. But it also has upsides. You don't have to worry about corruption anymore, because unless you put stuff into the schedule that says or leave after 30 seconds, then you're just creating corruption. But you shouldn't. You should be corruption proof. If you just do the simple full cargo, empty cargo, it should be corruption proof. But I'm sure somebody will figure out a way to mess that up. Anyway, that was one hell of a tutorial. I need to go have a drink now and probably go have dinner. So thank you very much for watching. I will catch you guys later.